Pregnancy, preparation, and family dogs. That's what we're going to be talking about today in our Family Paws Parent Education webinar. My name is Jennifer Shryock. I'm a certified dog behavior consultant, mother of four kids, four dogs. And what I want to share with you today are some of the things that we've learned over the years that help families when they're expecting or they're planning an adoption, as they want to prepare for their, you know, baby to enter the home with their current family dog. So today we're going to cover especially things for preparation ahead of time. So whether you're in the pre-adoption process or it's, your preconception or first trimester, these are things that you're going to want to do. And it's really going to be helpful if you take your time and you plan ahead and you think ahead. So that's going to be one of our assignments actually, is to map out some things. So first trimester, if you are expecting a baby and you're pregnant and you're experiencing that, you're going to be feeling a little bit off and you might be overly tired. Of course, if you're going through the adoption process, you might be exhausted as well. You're definitely going to have a level and degree of anxiety and excitement and that kind of thing. So those are all things that are going to reflect back to your dog. And your dog might be picking up that you're behaving a little bit differently than normal. Maybe you're oversensitive, maybe you're moody, maybe you're overly emotional. All of these things are things that can make your dog think, something's different. And you may interpret that as your dog is, knowing that something's going to change, a baby's happening, or a baby's going to be coming. It's not so much that they notice that, but they do notice what's changed for you. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. It's important to think about that from the perspective that your dog relies on your body language. They rely on you. They defer to you for what to do and when to do it, and how the overall feel is in the environment. So when you're having a really emotional day or you're just not feeling well, that kind of thing, it's a good idea to have some extra things for your dog to do. One of the tips that I recommend, and I encourage you to begin this as soon as possible, your dog will love you for it, is that you stock up on extra goodies. Meaning, when things go on sale, like after a holiday, that's a perfect time to grab some extra treats and toys and things that are holiday themed. Your dog really doesn't care if they have a pumpkin in July. So if it's a something that's going to give your dog pleasure, stock up on it now, save some money, take advantage of sales, so that when you're having some of those days that you're not feeling quite yourself, you're able to give your dog something to do. That's really important. It's something that they'll be very thankful for, and it keeps them out of your hair too. So that's something I recommend. During that pre-adoption and first trimester time, I want you to be thinking about your daily routines. Jot down what you do now, how you include your dog now on a daily basis. Jot down about, your typical schedule. Then start thinking about, how is this going to change? Is it going to change? Most likely, yes. So, if your dog is set at 5 o'clock, if you can tell that it's 5 o'clock because that's when your dog starts hounding you for dinner, you may want to look at trying to get your dog to be a little more flexible by changing that schedule, making it less rigid, not revolving your day around your dog. I know, sometimes that can be hard. I know that's going to be, big news to your dog, but it's going to help you a lot when you have your baby, because unfortunately, babies and toddlers don't really go on anybody's schedule but their own. So it's time that everybody adjust, including you. So that's something that I encourage people to do, especially for the first trimester. And, again, while you're planning and preparing, if you are adopting a baby and you're going through that process, keep in mind, you're going to have a lot of different scenarios going on, depending on with the age of your baby. I really encourage you to email us specific questions if you are adopting a baby and have concerns about your dog, because we would really like to support you as much as we can. And there's some age ranges with adoption where the advice is going to be a little bit different. So a lot will apply today, but there's also much more information, and we'd like to hook you up with someone who can give you as much advice and help and tips, if what you find here is not applicable. Okay, so it's really important that you look at the level and degree of anxiety that you're kind of showing your dog, and that you try to find things for your dogs to do. I know when I was pregnant, with my fourth baby, especially during the first trimester. I was really moody and cried quite a bit, and that really stressed out my shepherd. Now, granted, he gets stressed out a lot anyway, but it made him very uncomfortable if he saw me crying or if I was sick to my stomach or any of those things. So keep in mind your dog is really picking up on all those things. If you can distract them with something positive and high value, a Kong that's filled with something delicious or a new toy, go ahead and do that so that they have something to do. So first trimester, that's something. The other thing that I really want you to pay attention to is attention-seeking behavior. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by attention-seeking behavior is, how does your dog get your attention? Do they come over to you when you're sitting at the couch with your husband relaxing and nudge you and drop their soggy ball in your lap, or do they bark at the food bowl when they're ready to eat? At any rate, some of these behaviors may not be acceptable or appreciated when you have a newborn or a toddler or any child in your home. So it's important that you identify what some of those attention-seeking behavior traits are in your dog. If your dog is a pawer, where they paw, paw, paw for attention, are you going to find that appropriate and are you going to appreciate that if you're sitting on the couch feeding the baby? I don't think so. So the unfortunate thing is, and the reason why I think this is one of the first things that families should tackle, is because what happens when we don't decrease these types of behaviors, when the dog does what normally has worked for them over time, and it doesn't work when the baby's there, it gets mom or dad irritated, the dog becomes confused or anxious and starts to try to find other ways. So essentially, I mean, that's an explanation. But when the one thing that has worked for them before no longer works, they're going to go for other things that have either worked before. And that could be for your good attention, positive attention, or for your negative attention. So anything from bringing a tennis ball over to you, dropping it, to getting the squeakiest, noisiest ball that you usually are like, no, no, not that one, or peeing on the floor. It can be any number of things. So we really want to decrease the chances that that's going to happen for you. So what I encourage you to do is you and your partner sit down and you identify how your dog seeks the other's attention. So for my husband, it would be, Quentin walks over and he mouths his hand or he, nudges him to play. Okay, so that's how he gets attention from him. For me, it might be he comes over and he rubs against me or something like that. You know, Again, write down 3 to 5 attention-seeking behaviors that your partner, gives into with your dog or responds to or gets a response with your dog. And then what I want you to do is prioritize the ones that are going to be least appreciated when you have a baby in your house. So once you identify those, then what I want you to do is create a chart. Your chart is going to have the days of the week. And what I want you to do is kind of do a little counter conditioning for you. We are so used to reaching down and petting our dog when they come over to give us, when they put their head on our lap. And if we don't follow through with that petting, then what? Sometimes they're going to put their paw on you, or they're going to, climb up onto you. So one of the things that I want you to do is stop reinforcing the dog for pawing at you or putting a soggy tennis ball in your lap. We want to change that behavior into something else that would be more appreciated and acceptable. So the first thing we're going to do is practice ignoring. And I find that people need something to do because you need to first be aware that you are responding to your dog. Most people aren't. They do it nonchalantly. I've been in many homes where people are just giving biscuits to their dog. They have no idea the dog's been sitting there barking at the biscuit box and they're like handing them biscuits. And I'm like, do you realize how many your dog has just had? He's just told you he wants more and more and you're giving him more and more. And now he's become a tabletop dog, as we call them. So what I want you to do is become aware. So when you're sitting there pick the time of day that your dog is most likely to exhibit that behavior, practice the behavior. And I want you to put a chart on the other side of the room that says, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. When your dog comes over to paw you, nudge you, or whatever, get up and walk and put a tally mark on the chart. Do not pet your dog. Don't do anything else. Just acknowledge that in your mind, you're acknowledging the dog's doing something by getting up and leaving. What's happening is you are starting to pay attention to how often the dog is doing it, and you're also preventing it from working for the dog because you're not giving the dog attention. In fact, pawing at you or whatever is going to get you to leave. Then you come back over, sit down. If they do it again, you get up, put a tally mark on, come back, sit down. Sometimes if you are very pregnant at that stage, or it's difficult for you to get up and go across the room, what I like people to do, I know it sounds silly, is actually put a box or something like in their lap, okay, so that you can turn away from the dog. So you have a barrier between you, so you're able to go, nope, I'm not available, okay? And that way, and then put a tally mark on a clipboard next to you or something. What you're going to notice is the more that you do this, the decrease in tally marks. So the first day you might have 20 in a half an hour period. Then the next day you might have 15, and the next day you might have 20 again because they might try harder. It's not unusual for things to get worse before they get better. So that's a normal part of the process because they go, no, really, it works for me. Come on, come on, come on, act normal. Okay, so once we do decrease the behavior, then we want to start teaching our dog what we want them to do. So if we sit down on the couch and the dog is leaving us alone, then we can call them over and say, sit, and then pet them nicely. And then it's great if you can tell your dog, go lay down, go to your spot, go get your ball. All these go-to kinds of things are so helpful once a baby arrives. So that's something I begin these exercises in the first trimester. I think it's essential in every household. The second trimester, again, this is a different stage. Each trimester of pregnancy, just like different stages of adoption, are going to bring up different things. There's different moods, there's different emotions, there's different experiences. You might be doing some traveling the closer you get through to the adoption, those kinds of things. And that's a whole, gosh, there's so many other aspects involved there. But we're going to focus today on right here on second trimester. You might be feeling more energetic. People are usually starting to feel more relaxed with the pregnancy. You have, a lot of times this is when the super cool ultrasounds are done and you can see the baby more. You might be looking pregnant and showing, so that's always very cool. At least I always thought it was. Some people love it, some people don't like it. I don't know, depending on where you are. So we want to still work on the attention-seeking behaviors, but now we want to start adding some other things. I want people to practice getting ready for baby in this second trimester because I don't like to leave things to the third trimester. You never know. Nature is a beautiful thing, and you just never really can predict what's going to happen and how you're going to feel. So I like to leave things, the least amount of preparation for the end. I like to tackle these things. And also that way, if you run into a problem or situation, you're able to call out and reach out for help with some time left. It's not like a call where we're, you're due the next day and you want us to come out there and solve a problem. So if you're going to run into complications, better it be the second trimester than third. But we're willing to help you at any stage of the game. Okay, so you may be feeling much better, more active, much more energized. This is a really good time in the pregnancy for most families. So you, again, want to work on attention-seeking behaviors, and you want to um, be thinking about how is your dog taking in their environment? Is your dog a learner through, do they respond to lots of sudden noises? Do they respond overexcited to motion? What's going on? What type of dog do you have? It's real important to get familiar with that because as we introduce things like a crying baby doll or, what is it, the fur pets or Furbies or, that roll around and make noises, you want to know how to redirect your dog and what to do and how they might respond. It's really helpful. So if your dog is noise sensitive, then we're going to be prepared when we introduce things like a crying baby doll or baby sounds. We're going to have some higher value rewards and treats to redirect your dog to and reward them for calm behavior. The importance of playing baby sounds, it's a really, really great activity to do. It's something that you can do easily. There are many baby sounds online. We really recommend Legacy Canine's Baby Sounds by Terry Ryan. And what we find is that some dogs are really reactive to the baby sounds, while other dogs, they don't care. They don't care. When you bring home the real deal, they're like, what's that? And so, what I encourage people to do is play the baby sounds, follow the instructions on the DVD. There's a download that you can get. We'll have the link on our site. I'll put it up on, so there it is. But what I want you to do is I want you to follow, pay attention to what your dog is doing. And are you able to redirect them? If they're interested in the sounds of the baby crying, then are you able to get your dog's attention? Does he look to you? If he looks at you, great, reinforce them. Treat, treat, treat. If he's, fussing, whining, growling, racing around your house, maybe we should talk about that. But keep in mind that many dogs who do not react to the baby sounds on the recording often may react to the newborn cry when you bring the baby first home. And if that's the case, don't panic. We have an 800, not an 800, but a toll-free dog and baby support hotline for specifically dog and baby related questions, comments, or concerns. Please don't ever hesitate to call us if you are concerned about a response that your dog is offering. It is not unusual. Baby cries are meant to be alarms, and every newborn has their own particular pitch and tone to their cry. Um, there's no way we can imitate that in a sound CD. There just isn't. And then you add the visual and the fact that mom's holding it and everything else involved and the emotions and the chemistry that's happening between mom and baby when the baby's crying, and you've got a really, really intense situation. So if your dog is reacting in a way that concerns you, reach out and we can talk about that. So the other factor that I always say is keep in mind that your baby's cry, is going to be dependent also too a little bit on, size. I find that smaller babies have a higher, squealier kind of cry. It's so important and essential because we know that dogs are inquisitive. We want to be sure that there's always 100% awake adult supervision. So all doors closed when the baby's in the nursery. We have such terrific baby monitors now that's a great way to keep everybody safe. Close the wood door to the baby's room. I'm not a fan of screen doors or gates being as a barrier, not especially when there's a newborn. So that's something. So play the baby sounds and practice what it is you want your dog to do. Where do you want him to go? What is it you want him to do? So I know what I did was I wanted my shepherd to be very confident that when, there was crying, I wanted him to go to a spot. I wanted him to go get his ball. Those are the kinds of things that we can ask our dogs to do. You must practice that ahead of time because once the baby's there, believe me, that is not the time you're going to want to practice redirecting your dog what to do. I don't think a lot of parents think it's cute that their dog is reacting to their baby and going and seeing what the baby's doing, and they make a big deal of that. What I do is downplay that. I pretty much say, yes, that's Kelsey. I've got it. I've got this. Go lay down. I've got this. Go lay down. And I just get comfortable saying that, I've got it. It's my deal. I've got it under control. It's not about you. Go lay down. And that way they know it, I'm acknowledging, yes, I hear it. I hear the baby and I'm taking care of it. You go do your own thing. And I basically fire them from being interested or involved. The other thing that people want to do, and I think is a good idea, is carrying a doll. But why? I feel strongly that carrying a doll is an essential part of preparation for several reasons. One, your body language changes as soon as you're holding something. Now, moms with larger bellies are going to have a change in their body language as well. I know when I was training during my third trimester, I needed to stop because my body language was really not good. I was not as stable, and the dogs picked up on that. Your balance is off, and so little dogs look up going, where are you? There's a lot of different things. So you have to take these things into consideration. Carrying a doll gives you an opportunity using a Moby wrap or some kind of wrap or sling or whatever it is you feel comfortable using. It gives you the opportunity to practice how your dog's going to respond when your hands are full and when your attention is to something else. So when you're talking to a baby and saying, hey, how you doing? And talking to the baby and that kind of thing, is your dog, desperately seeking your attention? Or is your dog actually listening to you saying, go to your spot, sit? If you give a hand signal, will they follow that? Or do they think it's all about them? A lot of times we baby talk our dogs, and so sometimes it's confusing when a newborn comes. The dog thinks it's about them. They're like, wait a minute, they're talking to me. And it can become very confusing for them, especially if you have a little girl and you have a female dog. You may really refer to them kind of in the same voice and tone. That you did. So practicing with a baby doll allows you to see if your dog's going to listen to you and follow your cues when your hands are full. See if your dog is going to, how they're going to respond when you're talking to something else. You can use a baby doll. I don't care what you use. I encourage dads to put in an extra maybe 10 pounds so that they get the feel and sense of what it's like when you're carrying that around and you go from sitting to standing and on the floor to standing. Your body language changes. And so often, because dogs really study us, they see a difference. Some dogs decide, you're different. I'm not going to listen to you now. You want to really be consistent with your results with your dog. So practice. Get out the high value rewards and treats again, and practice with your dog. Use either low to medium value if that works. If you have a baby that you're practicing with and it cries, you might then need the high value. Again, if your dog responds, the moment they stop reacting or they look at you or they focus somewhere else and sit and follow a command, you want to reinforce that and you want to let them know, that's what I want you to do. I don't want you to jump up on me or freak out. I want you just to sit or look at me or go get your ball. So redirecting them while you have a crying baby in your arms is a really great thing. These are all things that you can do during that second trimester, and I find them really helpful. Again, if you have not at that point set out your list of routines and what you do with the dog throughout the day, that's a time to do that. Write it out. What kind of slot times do you have for the dog currently? How might that change? And start to make those changes now because, mixing and matching your schedule to make it more baby friendly is going to be something you're going to benefit from. Think about, where is the dog sleeping? How are we going to handle that when the baby's, in the bedroom, in the bassinet, or in the co-sleeper? This is something that often comes up. People often hang their head and say, my dog sleeps in my bed. And I said, you know what? I love my dogs. I love to cuddle with my dogs. Get over the shame. It's fine. But if your dog is going to be, guarding your feet or is that kind of dog, I don't like them in the bed because it's your bed. And I don't think dogs should be guarding feet or people in beds and that kind of thing. But also too, if you have a co-sleeper, you have something that is close to the bed, you're not going to want your dog to have access to the baby. So I really encourage that people use an indoor tether or what I refer to as a success station inside their bedroom, and they practice that ahead of time. Secure the dog to, someplace, a solid, sturdy piece of furniture where the dog is safe, and give them a nice cozy bed and start practicing and transitioning their dog into that. I don't necessarily think the dogs have to be outside of the room if they can be secured, and that's a really nice in-between way to do it. The other thing that I recommend, and there's a website actually for tethers that I really love. It's called pettethers.com. The other thing that I really, really, really recommend is to, if your dog is crate trained, you've got it. You're golden. Just, start using the crate in the bedroom, and instead of the dog being free. All right, so again, you've got to keep in mind that some of this management and some of the recommendations that I'm making now are for the newborn phase and for the first month or first 3 months. Every stage of child development and every stage your baby's going to go through is going to be a change in how you're going to manage and handle your dog. And so that's important to keep in mind. So nothing is forever. I think that helps. I hope that helps. Okay. So we talked about carrying a doll, we talked about baby sounds and all that fun stuff. I want to talk about the final stages in preparation. For me, the final stages of preparation are, what support system do you have in place? How are you going to maintain this relationship with your dog? How are you going to maintain the relationship with your spouse, your partner? I think that's essential because if you're not building a strong foundation, then sometimes things fall apart and they don't succeed. And I really want you to be successful. Um, it's important that you have support. A lot of people, when you first bring the baby home, are there to help. I encourage people to ask their friends and families to get pretty handy at stuffing Kongs and putting them in the freezer for you so you have something to give your dog or dogs. I also encourage a nice little activity that is meant to be kind of a bonding activity. Sometimes we forget what we really enjoy. And I know once you have a baby, it's easy to do. It may sound silly and ridiculous and like, it's never going to happen to you. But I encourage you to get uh, three different color note cards. And I want you to, on each color, so if you have a pink note card, you're going to write on the pink note card a 5-minute activity you like. Then if you have a yellow note card, you're going to write a 20-minute activity you like. And on the blue note card, you might put um, an afternoon activity that you enjoy. The reason I want you to do this is because often we forget what we like to do. We get wrapped up in helping and caretaking and all that. It's really important that you get your needs met so that you're able to feel capable and competent and comfortable meeting the needs of not only the baby and your partner, but also the dog. Often people feel overtired and overwhelmed and incapable of meeting everybody's needs. And unless you're getting your fuel tank recharged with some of this, you are going to get burned out. So what I recommend, and this is a common problem that I have, which is why I've created this kind of activity. So I want each one of you to write down those activities. Put like 5 of each into your activity jar or your sanity jar, whatever you want to call it. And on any given day when you're having a tough time, your partner can bring your jar to you and say, I want you to pull a green card, or I want you to pull a yellow card, or whatever they're committed to for watching the baby for that time. It's a really good way to keep your relationship with yourself in check and to make sure you're getting quality time. It's so important that you get breaks and that having someone else say to you, here's 10 minutes, pick something you want to do, will really give you an opportunity to go and say, you know what, I did like to go and play words with friends for hours on end before, or what, I'm just kidding, but whatever you want to do, go for a walk or whatever. It's kind of a way to gently force you to do something that, once gave you pleasure and hopefully still will. The other thing that I think is really important is making sure that your dog is up to date, especially your senior dogs. You want to make sure that if, any discomfort is going to be potentially an issue when you have a toddler, you want to make sure your dogs are up to date with all their vaccinations, all their medications, flea, tick, heartworm, all that stuff. Running a stool, your vet will know what to do. So regular physical, all those things are going to be really important. I like to have it done prior to when the baby comes. So if you're due during the, at the time your dog's annual visit is, schedule it ahead of time so that you don't have to carry the car seat with you and everything. Um, that's a really good thing to do. And, there's so many great services out there now that deliver food and deliver, all this stuff. There's a lot of great opportunities where you don't even have to leave the home, and that's really helpful for you. So if you have one of our Dogs and Storks presenters in your area, and you can check that out on familypaws.com, they can help hook you up with some people that can make life a little bit easier for you during those first days. When it comes to coming home from the hospital and everything, I really recommend that everybody keeps things calm. There's no right or wrong. Well, there's a wrong way to introduce the dog to baby, and that is basically, here's Johnny, and, letting the dogs come and sniff. It's most important that you come in and you're relaxed and everybody is ready. We brought our car seat in with Kelsey-Ann in it, sat her in the middle of our kitchen table with all the chairs around it. It was locked in position. I sat down with my hand on it right next to her. That way the dog sniffed me, got to see me. I sat there. It felt more comfortable for me just having had a baby. And it was fine. It's not an event for your dog, it's an event for you, and you want to keep it that way. I do encourage you to check out our other webinars. We have one on Welcome Home Baby that's free, and we also have one on postpartum and family dogs. So this webinar doesn't go too much into introductions because we save that for the other webinar that you can listen to at any time. But I really want to just recap some of what we talked about today in preparation. What you want to do, first of all, is again, look at your schedule. How often are you including your dog? Look at how that might change. Think about things you can do. Go out and buy some extra goodies for your dogs to have on hand, tuck away for a rainy day kind of thing. Write down the attention seeking behaviors and work on decreasing them. Then you also want to look at firming up your basic manners and making sure that the things you ask your dog to do, they actually know how to do. So we want to do that for sure. Um, Work on carrying a doll, playing baby sounds. Those are great things to do. And then we want to be sure that you're also preparing your dog physically, making sure that they're healthy and ready for any changes ahead, and that you're addressing any questions or concerns with your veterinarian. But I really want to thank you for taking the time to watch our preparing our pre pregnancy pups and preparation webinar. I hope this was helpful, and I encourage you to visit our site for more monthly webinars, and we're going to make as many on demand as possible. So send us your ideas. We always look forward to your ideas, and check out our email list and our blog, and friend us on Facebook at Dogs and Storks. Thank you and congratulations.